Narcissism is a big buzzword right now. I feel like it's overused. It's also very misunderstood. So I want to get some clarity. And this is for you if you are wondering, am I with a narcissist? And it's not always easy to tell. If someone hit you, you would know you were being abused, right? That's very clear cut. But what if the harm wasn't physical? What if it was emotional? What if it was psychological and so subtle that you were doubting yourself, starting to question your own perceptions of reality, and is a lot more insidious that way? Narcissistic abuse is like that. It leaves really invisible wounds. It's hard to detect. And by the time you're really aware of it, you're really hooked in and you've lost yourself to the degree that you have less resources and less strength to be able to leave. So today I want to give you all the information that you need to, first of all, identify a narcissist, what is and what isn't possible if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, and then also how to handle them in the most effective way possible. So the best description of a narcissist that I've heard comes from Judith Orloff, and she describes a narcissist as having a very grandiose sense of self-importance, a craving for admiration, and an expectation that the world revolves around them. So while some narcissists are very obvious in their grandiosity and in their egotism and in their self-centeredness, others are very charming and they can seem like they have a lot of empathy in the beginning, and they can be very intelligent and super nuanced where you don't even really realize it's not obvious until they're not getting the feedback that they want to get. If they're not being mirrored back to themselves in the way that they want, if they feel like somehow their reputation is being called into question or the qualities that they think they have, and that's not being acknowledged or validated, that's when they start to turn and there starts to be tension and there starts to be disconnection. And this could be the case no matter how respectfully you bring up feedback. You could be bringing it up in the perfect way, in the most loving energy, and they're still not going to like it if there's any implication that there's anything that they need to be doing differently in order to meet your needs in the relationship. So to identify if you're with a narcissist, you want to ask yourself these 5 questions. Does this person act as if life really revolves around them? Like you're fitting in around them, their priorities are your priorities. Otherwise, there's going to be a fight. The second question is, do I have to compliment them to get their attention or approval? The third one is, do they constantly steer conversations back to themselves? Number 4 is, do they downplay your feelings and your interests? And finally, if you disagree with them, do they get angry, cold, or withholding? Now, if you answered yes to 1 or 2 of those things, you might be dealing with somebody with narcissistic traits. A lot of people have narcissistic traits. That's not necessarily a diagnosable personality disorder. But if you answered yes to 3 or more, you are likely involved with a full-blown narcissist. And that means that they're really violating your emotional freedom. Then they're not a safe person in the long run emotionally. Now, clinically speaking, if you were going to look at the criteria, a person has to exhibit 5 or more of the following traits to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. The first is reacting to criticism with anger, shame, or humiliation. The second is taking advantage of others to reach their own goals. So very transactional. The third is that they exaggerate their importance and their achievements and their talents. That's kind of where the grandiosity comes in. They imagine unrealistic fantasies of success, beauty, power, intelligence, or romance. So very idealistic, and anything that is not the ideal is worthy of contempt. They require constant attention and positive reinforcement, lacking empathy and disregarding the feelings of others, either just not interested in the feelings of others, genuinely just don't care, or annoyed by it because now it's something they have to deal with and they really don't want to have to deal with it. So they resent any feelings that would require them to empathize. The 7th is becoming easily hurt and rejected because everything is sort of a narcissistic injury. It's like, if you're not reflecting me back the way I want to be reflected back to myself, I don't like what I'm hearing, I don't like how you see me, that is going to cause deep shame and deep hurt and deep rejection beyond the normal scope. Nobody really likes to get feedback if it's not positive. Most people do have to work on not being defensive, but a narcissist takes it to the extreme level where there really is no way that they're going to receive any input about themselves because they're always defending against shame and hurt and rejection. And then the final thing is that they want the very best of everything. This is also part of this personality trait of feeling that they're really special. They're only going to associate with people that are very special. Now, if you think that you're with somebody who fits this label, the next question is, what is possible in my relationship? Like, what if I think that they might be a narcissist or they have enough traits to make it problematic? What am I going to do? A lot of people that are with a narcissist, they really want to believe that if they work on themselves or communicate better or clean up their side of the street, that they can improve their relationship, that they can move into relational health as long as they've done their inner work. And this is false because it's a precondition. And I want to make that really clear because my whole message is it doesn't take two. You don't have to wait for your spouse's buy-in. You can transform your relationship, just you, from the inside out. But if you're dealing with a narcissist or another precondition like abuse or an untreated mental health condition or addiction, then it doesn't matter how perfect you are, you're still going to have these problems. So I want to say that at the outset so nobody's blaming themselves or putting undue responsibility on their side of the street. That really is, it's a myth, and it will set you up for failure and disappointment and beating yourself up. In my experience, is very, very rarely the case, and I've never even seen it happen. I have heard that there are people who can acknowledge that they're a narcissist and make changes. I've just never met somebody like that. I believe it is possible, but 98% of the time, it's not going to be possible. And the reason that that is the case is because narcissists, they lack self-awareness. That's part of the diagnosis. And they lack the ability to genuinely love or change, because the change would require them to admit that change is required, which would hurt their ego too much, so they can't do it. They become closed circuits, and their entire emotional framework is built on self-protection and entitlement and manipulation. It's all about protecting their image of themselves. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, here are some realities that you have to be aware of. You will not be able to change them. They're not going to take accountability for their actions. And I know that that is so hard to hear, but they're not going to self-reflect. They're very, very unlikely to be like, you know what, you're right. I see the part that I played in that situation. And it's one of the most disappointing things, right? It's just so painful. And you will be blamed for everything. The second is that they do not love in the way that you expect. You can't really love if all you're doing is protecting your identity from an ego place. That isn't love. Everything you do is to protect yourself. And it's sort of like you can't be in love and fear at the same time. You cannot be in self-protection mode in an egotistical way and still be loving. It doesn't allow you to be in relational health with that other person, to take into consideration their needs and adapt accordingly. They're not going to do anything that doesn't serve them. It's going to be very transactional. They're going to care about what they can gain, and they're not going to care so much about a genuine emotional connection. It's always a means to an end. The third thing you'll notice is that if you set a boundary, they're going to react negatively. Not just the communication of the boundary, but when you hold it. When you actually hold a boundary, they do not like it. I mean, most people, anytime you're changing your boundaries, the person has to adjust, and not everybody likes a boundary being implemented that wasn't there before. But somebody who's reasonable will get over it. But a narcissist won't ever get over that. They're going to become enraged. They're going to withdraw affection, and they're going to try to punish you by withdrawal. And they'll stonewall you and ignore you and find all kinds of reasons to be cruel and unkind, and they'll put it back on you. And then finally, staying in a relationship with a narcissist comes at a cost. And this is something I always want to tell people. Like, you can choose to stay with a narcissist, like I kind of touched on earlier, if that's the lesser of two evils. But you just have to have your eyes wide open, and you have to know that it's going to cost you. It's going to cost your self-esteem. It's going to cost your sense of reality, which is, to me, the most damaging thing. When you start to feel like, am I crazy? What is really going on here? And you really don't trust your own intuition anymore, it's really damaging. And your health, your mental health, your emotional health, and even your physical health will suffer. Now, if you have to stay due to circumstances like maybe you're stuck financially, or it's going to take you some time to leave, maybe you've got children, maybe you're locked in some kind of custody thing, or there's some legal arrangement, some entanglement that prevents you from leaving a narcissist. Or maybe you know that you need time to heal and strengthen yourself, and you're not strong enough to leave yet, right? You don't have the inner confidence to do that. That's fine. You just have to focus on developing very extreme emotional resilience and firm boundaries. So that's where you want to start, and let go of any need for them to understand you. I'll get into this in a minute, but they're going to be committed to misunderstanding you. So you will be wasting your time. So, because my advice, honestly, would be like, if you think you're with a narcissist, I think the faster that you accept that that's the case and find a way to leave the relationship, that's what I would always recommend, because I don't stand for people staying in unhealthy, toxic relationships, even though I'm all about saving marriages and I want couples to stay together, but not in situations where it's really abusive and damaging to one or both parties. So that would be my first piece of advice. But if you're involved with a narcissist and you choose to stay, there are 6 strategies that I want to go over. The first thing is you have to hold your ground. Don't let them sway your perception of reality. And the only way that you can do that is you have to stay connected to supportive friends. You have to have a good therapist. You have to be journaling, writing things down so you can stay connected to your own truth and your own experience over time. So if you're ever in a situation where you're like, I need to record this phone call, or I need to record this interaction that I'm having because later they're going to spin it and I'm going to doubt myself, this is for you. If that's you, you already don't trust yourself. And so the more that you can talk through with trusted people outside of the relationship, and stay in a relationship with yourself through journaling and therapy so that you really are clear and know what is real for you and trust what you know. That is the most important thing that you can do. So you absolutely have to stay strong and hold your ground and know what is real. The second thing is you have to frame things in a way that benefits them. This is pure strategy. If you weren't with a narcissist, I would never give this advice, because you should always come forward. It's important to come forward and say, this is what I need and this is why, and not be framing things in terms of what's going to benefit them, because that's stepping into their lane. But with a narcissist, they're not going to respond to you stating your needs. That's not of interest to them. They're going to respond to their own self-interest. So if you can phrase things in a way that appeals to their ego, or phrase things in a way that appeals to what they're going to get something out of it too, right? You're trying to get their buy-in for something. There's something really important to you and you need their cooperation. Try to lead with finding a way to align what you're trying to do with what is in it for them, if you can. Whether it's their sense of self, their broad identity of being a good parent, or whether it's a financial incentive, whatever you know they care about, you can leverage that. If you're asking yourself, is that manipulative? No, it's not manipulative if the reason you're doing it is to create the healthiest environment that you can for yourself. It's strategic, it's conscious, and it's what you're doing to survive. In a situation where you're surviving in the face of somebody else who already isn't caring about you, it's just a strategy and they've left you no other choice. So I say use it as a tool. The third thing is don't challenge their delusions. Arguing with a narcissist is such a waste of time. This is hard to do. You will be hooked in. They will hook you in. They'll say things that make you want to argue with them or defend your case or tell them that what they're saying about you isn't true. They'll get a dig in and then you feel like you need to respond to that. And that's how they source themselves. Like you're providing supply to them, energetic supply. They're committed to misunderstanding you. So it is literally a waste of time. It doesn't matter how succinctly you say it, how much sense you're making. If they are committed to insisting on something that you know isn't true, and they're trying to gaslight you and they're trying to make you think that what you saw you didn't actually see or that didn't actually happen, you're not going to convince them. I want you to save your energy, because if you're going to come up with an exit plan or take care of yourself or have the energy to have a healthy life, you don't have the energy to drain it out on arguing with someone. Number one rule that they teach you as a social worker, a student, or you're learning to be a therapist, don't argue with a fixed delusion. There's no therapeutic value, and you're only going to break rapport. And if rapport is what you need to navigate a very dicey situation, then I would say try to accept that they don't understand. Try to accept that they see it a way that you don't see it, and live with that disconnect. And that's where the self-care comes in. The fourth thing you want to do is protect your emotional freedom. So this is basically like the longer that you stay, the more risk that you are going to lose your sense of self. So to protect your emotional freedom, you need to know what is the line that if it gets crossed, I've lost myself and I've lost my emotional freedom. And now I'm literally just being controlled. My perceptions are being controlled by this one person, and it's not in my best interest. So what is that for you? What is harming you? What is something that you can live with? What are the battles you have to fight? What are the battles you don't have to fight? And protect yourself in not just your energy, but imagining what is going to keep me emotionally free. And emotionally free means being able to have a perception that you feel very confident in that is completely being interrogated or undermined or refuted by your partner. The fifth thing is, and this is if you want to leave, but you feel stuck financially or for whatever reason emotionally, plan an exit strategy if you need to do that. So sometimes it takes time and strategy, and you can't just up and leave. So you really want to treat this as safety planning. And what that is you are planning an exit in two ways. In one way where they don't know about it and they can talk me out of it. They'll get in my ear. They'll sabotage my plan somehow. They'll make things better for a while so that I get comfortable again and I don't leave, right? So you don't tell them. You plan it in secret because they're going to fight dirty. Don't give them the information that they need to know what your plans are. Like change your passwords, get your passport, pack while they're gone. If you have children, get their birth certificates, collect the papers, start putting money away. Do all of this in secret. And then when the time is right, then you leave while they're gone, so that by the time they know what's happening, they can't sabotage you. If you have children together and you really do leave and they don't want you to, hurting you will be more important to them than what is good for the children. And this is one of the most difficult things, depending on the narcissist, depending on how toxic they are. Most of the time, winning and protecting their reputation and making sure everybody knows they're not the problem, you're the problem. And whatever they can do to use the children as pawns, they'll talk poorly about you to the kids, even though that's not in the best interest of the kids. They will do parental alienation. They'll tie you up in court forever. They'll make it difficult. They'll lie about you. They'll do whatever they can. So I just can't overemphasize that. And then the final thing is prioritize self-care. So if you leave a relationship or you're about to leave a relationship, healing from narcissistic abuse or just healing from the gaslighting and the second guessing and the chronic invalidation, it's going to require nurturing relationships, very strong boundaries, energetic boundaries, external and containing boundaries. It's going to require a lot of self-reflection of like, was there something about me that made me more vulnerable to this type of person so that I can be aware so that I'm not at risk of getting in another narcissistic relationship in the future. A lot of times, really empathetic people are perfect matches for narcissists. So really use this time as self-reflection. Where was my weakness? Where was my lack of strength in my own sense of self and what I knew to be true that I didn't trust in myself? And how do I get that back? And then making sure you have a ton of emotional support, get a therapist. And also, I really think getting specific narcissistic recovery support is really important. That is not my specialty. There are resources available. Like, I really love the work of Dr. Ramani. You can find her on YouTube. And also Melanie Tanya Evans. Check out their YouTube, go to their Facebook groups, listen to some of their content. They go into all the details of the different types of narcissism and it gets a lot more granular. They have people that are going through similar things. And I think that that is one of the most healing things that you can do is to be surrounded with people that are like, they get it. It's tremendously healing. Anybody that loves you needs you to be healthy. So focusing on your recovery and what you need and the healing process is healing those limiting beliefs and coming back into knowing your value, your worth, and your power. I just want to leave you with the knowledge that relationships, any partnership or relationship is supposed to add value to your life. A good relationship makes you the best version of who you are. You can find a relationship that brings out the best in you. That's a value add and you deserve that. That's it for today. If you like my content, please take a second and either like this video or subscribe to my channel or both. That will help us reach the people that really need to hear this stuff.